thought I was playing? Huh.
Well, welcome back to the iHealth channel, the Fitness Fab channel, and iHealth Radio with Hurricane H here. A new night, a new guest, a new show, special show always. Today's topic is going to be something that many of us may probably experience one way or the other, one time of our lives, or someone in our lives may have, some sort of a case of it. And it's the topic of depression. Now, our guest today has experience in dealing with this, experience with sharing information about it. He's also an enthusiast in fitness, martial arts, you name it, yoga, and he'll talk to us a little bit more about all that stuff. And he also has a book, so he's an author. We're going to talk about that book as well. So without any further ado, Zack, Rutledge, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hurricane H, thank you so much. It's a real honor being here. Seriously, thank you.
Honor is mine. My pleasure. And hope we'll have a fun, discussion and a lot of input and insights to share with the people and the viewers and listeners. So Zack, tell us a little bit about yourself, your history, and what got you in the fitness world. And I know you have a lot to offer and a lot of background stuff that we need to hear about. So let's talk about that.
Sure. So what got me into fitness was actually after my battle with depression, the big drop off, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But my first thing that I really got serious about was martial arts. I got into karate, and fitness was kind of like the byproduct. That was just something I did to get me in shape or like better able to do my martial arts because I loved it, right? So that was like a real passion of mine. And the fitness just came. But I was also a teenager. See, I started karate when I was 11 years old. So I was doing it for a good while. I got my black belt when I was 18.
Good age.
Yeah. Good age. And I'll never forget this. They handed me my black belt and they said, "Congratulations, you're a beginner." And boy, did that speak volumes, right? We can look at everything in life that way. Yeah.
Well, that is the truth. It is
the truth. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, true martial artists, they're tapped into that, right? So anyway, it wasn't until after my first serious bout with depression where, believe it or not, it didn't come. I was playing with a band, so like it's kind of unexpected. I was playing in a band, and the guys were into fitness, and they were into lifting weights, and they were like, "Hey, man, you should get into lifting weights." And that was where the fitness thing started with me. Was just lifting weights. Next, and that turned into cycling and yoga and I was telling you before we started recording, I just taught a HIIT class. I still teach classes. So it just spun out to everything. I love all that, all the physical stuff. I love it. So that's kind of how that started. Yeah, unexpected, right? Playing in a punk rock band.
Well, I mean, that was fun, and again, you still have to have a hobby besides the music. I mean,
right,
your thing, and you got to be in shape and stuff, and why not, right?
Yeah,
some muscle and working out is not a bad deal. Plus, you already had the martial arts background,
right?
And you just said two things there. I mean, in martial arts, and I can relate to that. You started early on, and that's a perfect run. 11. I mean, I personally started when I was 9, so we're about the same age then. Same age about the black belt, about 18. So that's exactly where it starts, and that's really where the beginning. That's the start of where you start your career in it if you continue with it. But then you're right. The key component of martial arts is not just the technique and everything you learn. It's also the fitness and the endurance into it. And that's a big component that drove you into the world of just general fitness and everything else that goes with it. Yeah. And so now you have the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
So you did all that, and you were on the band. So what happened?
So to clarify, I'm still in a band. So I've been stopped, right? So I may be quite a few band stories, and I apologize for that.
No worries.
So So what happened was, so looking back on my childhood, I had a very stable childhood. Now, I would say there were some chemical issues going on, where I kind of took things a little harder than other people. I do notice that now because now I have the insight, right? I remember getting in trouble in school and I would take it a lot harder than my classmates. Um, and some like relationship issues in my teens where I would take breakups way harder than I should have. But I just figured I was a moody punk rocker, right? So that was just what I thought. So it wasn't until when I was 18 years old, it was the summer after high school, my best friend was killed. So that was right at the time, I call it the perfect storm. So it was the summer after high school, my lifelong best friend died. And then everyone I went to high school with, of course, all my friends, they were all leaving for college. We were all splitting apart. Now, this is before social media. So there wasn't a real practical, immediate way to keep in touch with each other, aside from, phone calls here and there. But they were busy building their own lives. So that on top of my karate school shut down. So it was quite a bit. And then what I'll add, my last piece here, and I do talk about this a little bit in the book, is late teens, early 20s tends to be when things like depression, OCD, you pick your quirk, let's say, they tend to manifest. Okay, so that's when this all hit me all at once. So that was a very, very dark time. Now, to put things into perspective, right? So this goes back to the fitness. I'm 5'9" and I'm 170 pounds, okay, which is nothing, okay, whatever, nothing really to talk about there. But at the time, I was 5'9" and I dropped to 124 pounds. So we're talking almost a 50-pound difference.
I was shocking. Yeah.
Yeah. So if I got sick, as my primary care doctor says, I love her. If I got sick, there was nowhere to go. So it was pretty bad. Now, because of the information, especially at that time, this is internet was around, but it's not like it is today, right?
Yeah.
Most of the news you were getting from TV, and most of the nutrition stuff we know is geared towards overweight people because Americans tend to be overweight. So I figured I was doing my body a favor by getting as skinny as I could and by staying away from food and not overeating, where I'm actually a hard gainer. So in trainer terms, I'm ectomorph. So I needed that food. And I just wasn't eating it. I thought I was like, okay, well, I'll feel better if I don't eat. That was one of the worst things I could do, right? So when I was playing in these bands, and these guys were into lifting weights, that was the very first thing. That was my first little building block, because I started lifting weights, and I was like, oh, I was 124 pounds. Now I'm 135, and then I was like, oh, now I'm 145, and then within a year. Maybe not a year, but within not too long, I was up to 170, just by lifting weights. And I was like, hold on a minute here. And I was still in a very deep depression. I was like, if I can see results in this, what else can I do? Right? Because I thought I was doomed to be 124 pounds. But I made some lifestyle changes, and I enjoyed those changes, and I made really positive growth. So that was my very first building block, and it's all kind of built upon that. So I tend to start in that realm, in the physical realm, because you can see it.
Wow. Well, so going back to the depression. So the death of a friend, your friends, and all your entourage pretty much disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
Your martial arts, your hobby, your passions was also limited.
Mm-hmm.
So was that what actually drove you to just kind of like let yourself go and just not do anything? Was that like just stress?
It was stress. I think looking back, there was some PTSD involved, along with grief. Now, I should note that grief is not depression. Grief is something we all have to go through.
Sure.
And you can actually medicate, I'll call it mask grief, for a while. Let's say you lose a loved one, and you can medicate and you can get by for a while. But if you come off of it, you have to eventually climb that mountain. You have to get through grief. This isn't an optional thing, right? And that's normal. And it sounds strange, but I remember feeling grief and feeling depressed, and they would kind of swerve back and forth, and the grief felt much cleaner. And that sounds odd to some people, but if you're in depression, We don't have to go through depression, and it feels much uglier. My depression, sometimes I describe them as flavors because not everyone's depression is the same, and I went through a bunch of different types. And my depression was very black at first, and then it was very green feeling. I can remember these very vivid different feelings. So I just think it was that perfect storm. Like I said, whether he passed away or not, who knows? Maybe I still would have been depressed. Maybe it was more of a chemical thing. I don't know.
So it was really something that you've tried to deal with, but again, you probably justified it through all the events that happened. But it could have been, as you said, something that just an imbalance, or something that was not correct.
Right. No, that's a good point, because I attributed it to him passing away. And then, next thing you know, 2 years passes and I wasn't making any progress. And I said, okay, my grief period should be, coming to a close here, or at least making some kind of progress. And when I didn't, that was when things started to click a little bit. Like maybe there's something else going on, because, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle, right? I didn't know what was going on. I'm 18 years old, and no offense to young people, but 18 is not an adult. You just don't have the experience, and you don't have the insight at that age yet.
Well, and in a few shows we've discussed the youth, and you're right. It's the world is different at that age, and we see it differently, and we don't have enough, to your point, experience to deal with stuff. Any one of us today, we'll go back in time. There's a lot of stuff we'll do different.
Oh, every one of us, man. That's the one thing we all have in common.
I guarantee you, everybody listening and watching, I mean, like, damn, yeah. I mean, let's just take a time machine, go back and move a few things, and do different things, and learn different things, whatever the case may be. Maybe invest in a few stocks, but that's not a story.
Of course.
But there's so many things that we could do. But you're right. I mean, again, I've been to that age as well, and it's different. Now, the only difference is, you said depression, but I think that everyone at a point or the other has some sort of a level of it. We might not identify it. We might not, agree that we've had it, or even admit that we had it, but we might all have some dark time or dark place. And so that leads me to a question. And in your definition, of course, because people may hear the word depression and they have different color and view of what depression is. What is, like, if you can describe it to us, what in your experience, in your personal, I guess, research and stuff, depression looks like? How does it manifest?
It's a loaded question because there are so many different answers, because there are so many different types.
Okay.
Like I said before, there are different flavors. I will say this, and I feel like this is an important point to make, because there's still that stigma, to an extent. It's getting better, but there's still that stigma. And if you wonder if you have it, you probably do. And even if you don't, that's okay. Take action anyway. And that's really the whole point of my book, is I'm giving these like actionable steps to improve your life. So if you're wondering about it, let's just treat it like it is. And the funny thing is, there's, like I said, the different flavors. Just to give you a couple quick examples, sometimes it's just a feeling in your gut that just won't let go. Sometimes it feels like your brain is running your mind, as opposed to the other way, right? Our mind is supposed to use the brain, which is the hardware. So it's a tough thing to put your finger on. But like I said, if you think you have it, treat it as if you do, because there's no harm in that.
Well, again, so in my, like, the way I see depression is like bad mood. You're not in the mood for anything. Everything sucks. You see it live as this dark place, and you just kind of like, it's like you're in the zone, and you can't get out of it. Like you just basically so sad.
It's hopeless. It's hopeless is a good way to put it. Yeah. And clinically, I think the definition is like this extreme sadness that lasts longer than 2 weeks. Yes, maybe.
I like that. That's a simple.
Yeah, maybe. That could be grief as well, because grief, I think, takes longer than 2 weeks. But it's one of those things. It's almost like a really great song, and saying like, why do you love this song? It's hard to put it into words.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, this is just a more of a general way to describe it, and I'm sure clinicians and maybe psychiatrists and they might even have a more in-depth a view of it. And as a matter of fact, we will have a few shows about psychology coming up, and I will ask that question just to get some more deep dive on it. But again, like I know people like I'm depressed, I'm not feeling good, like what's wrong? I see life as this, nothing's working out for me, and they just kind of like collapse on themselves, and but that could be a bad place because that could trigger many other, you were able to get out of it, you were able to reset, and you find ways to do it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But some people may not have that ability and eventually get caught up into it, and it's long enough, it might cause other things, or lead to some maybe fatal outcomes, God forbid, and we hear about suicide, we hear about this, and it could be just the beginning of something that's extreme.
Well, I should make this point. Everyone who's depressed has the capability to get out of it, to make their lives better. I will say that because I firmly believe it. If you take action, that's the thing though. A, a lot of time people are so depressed, it's hard for them to take the action. I was bedridden for months at a time. I failed out of college. I would go to class here and there, and then I just stopped showing up. And it was hard for me to literally get out of bed. It's hard for people to understand that, right? Because you're like, well, you're awake. Why aren't you getting out of bed? But yeah, there was a very physical aspect to mine too, for good portions of it, where I just sucked the energy. But I wasn't taking any action, right? So if we can just get people over that little, just to take that little bit of action, I firmly believe, everyone has hope.
So Zach, let's talk about the action. What will be some of the minimum stuff that people can start with if they do feel that, or at least they can identify that they might be in a depression mode? What would be some of the first steps that they will take? I mean, I can think on a few, but in your experience, and also based on your research in the book, what would be some of these elements that someone can benefit from if they feel that, hey, wait a minute, I think I do qualify for this, case of depression. I cannot be, again, it takes always admitting and accepting the facts. That's always, and then the will of making the change. Again, actions speak louder than the word, right? I mean, unfortunately, not everybody is willing to take, and sometimes they don't, they're in denial. So I'm good. I'm relaxing.
Yeah, and that's as varied as personalities, right? Some people, they want the instant fix, and there is no such thing as an instant fix, and there's no such thing as a silver bullet. So there's a myriad of different treatments, and in my book, I call it the D-Day approach. We come at it with all of them.
I like that.
Yeah, it's kind of morbid, right? But I couldn't think of a better term.
Powerful.
Yeah. So to get back to your question, what can we do? Just because of my love and my experience, I always like to start with the physical. I gave you my point with the weight training and my love of working out. And for anyone who's really struggling, if you have a friend who's really struggling, I urge you to take them to a yoga class. Because you're going to get a lot from it. You're going to get the socialization, you're going to get the physical aspect, you're going to get some of the mental, you're going to, they're learning new things, you're going to get the meditation, some of that in the end. So I urge you to take a friend there. That would be like, if I were giving somebody advice to help a friend, because a lot of the time what you say to them isn't going to make too much of a difference. You've got to get them doing something, right? Taking those steps. And once they see that they can get through a yoga class, which, by the way, they're not that easy. It's not just bendy, stretchy. There's a lot of physical stuff going on there, but you will have a good time, regardless. So like I said, the physical stuff, but that includes also nutrition. Now, I know a lot of people who attribute depression to actually a gut issue. Now, I would say, yes, it can be, but I don't think that's the only cause. So a lot of the times people are being given probiotics to help their gut issues, because you actually create more serotonin in your gut than you do in your brain, believe it or not. So that's one treatment, right? But I don't think anyone should stop there. Some people, this is going to sound crazy, some people say that it's actually a lot of cases of depression are brought on by dehydration, which sounds crazy, right? So yeah, crazy enough. Some are actually, physical brain injuries, and there are things for that as well. So getting back to the gut thing, I highly urge anyone, whether you're depressed or not, to get an allergy test. Now, I'm smiling because it's not that bad. It sounds awful. You get all these pinpricks in the back of your back, and they make a chart and they find out which foods just don't work for your body, right? So I know if I have a glass of milk, it's not going to end well. Okay. So, and that's good to know, right? And these things can be creating all kinds of inflammation in your body, right? Some people say depression is brought on by inflammation. So, which I would say yes and, right? My answer for all these causes is yes and. Um, so yeah, dial in which foods are just not going to work for your body. It's not just allergies, but it's also intolerances. We want to get that inflammation down. And I'll also, and I, of course, there's the disclaimer because we don't want things interacting with other things you're taking. But things like vitamin D, especially here in the Northeast, we're both in New Jersey, a, a huge percentage, and I can't remember the number right now, but a big percentage of us in the Northeast are extremely low on vitamin D because we just don't get enough sunlight. Now, that being said, I was taking a multivitamin every day, right? And I was still so low on vitamin D, I was getting microfractures in my neck that I didn't know about. They were very small, and they had to put me on prescription vitamin D. And then finally, I could just take the regular vitamin D supplement on top of it. Also, a theory of what contributes to depression is low vitamin D. So I would say that, and then I personally really like flaxseed oil because I like the omega-3s to help bring the inflammation down. But if you were to ask me for one thing, and of course, talk to your doctor because there are blood thinning aspects to this, I would say turmeric capsules. Now, turmeric, it may also be called curcumin or curcuminoids. You may see it as. Here's the thing: you want to make sure that there's a little bit of black pepper in the capsule. Or if it doesn't have it in the capsule, which is about 50% of the time you buy it, it'll already be in the capsule. If not, just take it with dinner and put some black pepper on your dinner, because what that will do is increase the bioavailability of your turmeric. Okay, so that way you can absorb it. Now, one turmeric capsule is like eating 1,000 turmeric roots, so it's not enough to just spice your food with it. For people who don't know what it is, it's like a root. It's an orange root.
Yeah, it does look like ginger, but it's yellowish.
Yeah. It looks like ginger, but it's like more of an orange yellow. But yeah, the capsules are far more potent, and really good for inflammation, really good for a lot of things. So if you take those three along with how I start every single morning, I brush my teeth, drink a tall glass of water, and visualize my day as I drink that tall glass of water. Right. And that's that one small positive step that you're starting your day with. And then I eat breakfast. I know some people don't. I eat breakfast and I'll take those supplements. That's my next small positive step. Then I'll have my coffee, and they just all kind of build on each other. By the way, I'm going to clear this up once and for all for anybody who's listening. Coffee is good for you guys. Very good for brain health. Now, of course, too much isn't good for you, right? You don't want to be drinking 7 cups a day. But I think it's like up to 3 cups a day. You're golden as long as it's not interrupting your sleep. Very good for your brain. I'm a brain health trainer as well. So yeah, coffee's okay, guys.
Well, that it's funny because a lot of people, this big topic about coffee, how much can you drink of it, and this or that, is caffeine. But you're right. I mean, a lot of studies are showing that it's pretty good. As long as it's moderation, and that's it. Like everything else.
Like everything else, you're exactly right.
So Zack, you've highlighted some of the some physical aspect, some nutritional aspect, well, at least some supplement aspect. So, but it's really a package, right?
Of course.
And it's also a mindset, because you just said you gotta put in your mind, visualize your day, do all that. So there's a lot more than just taking stuff. It's a composition of different elements that you have to add, and then the outcome is that you'll be better off than most. If you follow those.
Absolutely. The thing is, you can't do it all at once, right? You're not just going to wake up one day and do every one of these steps. Start small and celebrate those small victories. Now, you talked about mindset for a bit, which is equally as important. Hard to get going when you're it feels like almost like a battle. Like I said, it feels like your brain is almost driving your mind because you're geared towards those negative thoughts. Now, to backtrack a little bit, the theory is that we automatically focus on the negative. Okay. And I argue that we're experts at seeing the negative in things. And the theory is that back when we were cavemen, it was more advantageous to watch out for the saber-toothed tiger than to go after the food, because the saber-toothed tiger can't wait. The food will be there, right? So we're geared towards that negativity. The problem is it's many years later. We don't live in that world anymore, right? But we're still geared towards that negativity. Okay, so understanding that, fine. It's because it's such a complex thing, and I don't want to forget this. If any of your listeners want that chapter just to check it out, it's on me. Have them email me, and I'll send them that chapter on mindset, and that'll be a good place to kind of get them started as well.
Definitely, and we'll talk about how to link to all these resources.
Great.
The book. So yeah, definitely at the end we'll discuss all these. But thank you for the offer, and definitely if you're listening in, hey, we can do this. We can get anything we can grab, as information, insights that can help us be better. And you've touched on negativity and positivity. I mean, those are things that I live with myself, and I just can tell you this: it's a powerful way of living when you actually can differentiate and always lean towards the positive. Because if you think negative, everything in your life is going to have a negative outcome. It's just like, it's unbelievable. If you think positive, you'll see everything in the positive light, and things will get better for you. And then you can control no depression, no anxiety. You can have better resilience and everything else. I mean, there's so much stuff about positivity, but
like you said, sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But like you said, it all goes together, which is why I ask people to do all these things, right? Because it's very hard for somebody to just say, I'm positive. Meanwhile, their physical health is falling apart, and they're eating garbage, and which very much people underestimate this. What you eat can very much twist your thoughts. I'm a firm believer of that. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's a fact. And so going back to the physical activities, I know you are a personal trainer, you do all that stuff, and you help people as well. Is there any regimen of physical activities that someone should adhere to, minimum, or and I mean, whatever they can get to? Some people have time, some people don't. Some people are older, some people are younger, and there's so many type of reasons why people cannot do the same thing. But what would be like some of the standard stuff that you would recommend to help someone on a day-to-day basis? You just really like get excited and have their day in a very positive way.
Okay, you're getting me in my passion now. So
boy, baby.
Okay, so if I were talking to somebody like you or me, and we are the minority, is I would say get into martial arts, right? But that's we're not the majority of people. Okay, so I'll put that up there, because martial arts, how magical they can be, right? They're just their own thing. I would recommend yoga. Again, it's not going to be a whole lot of people, but it's slightly more people can get into yoga, which I think is extremely powerful. Now, what should they be doing? It's the one that they love. So I do give quite a few examples in the book of things they can do. My new passion, you're going to laugh at me, Hurricane H.
Go for it.
Okay, I don't know if you heard of this game yet, pickleball.
No.
Okay. I'm looking over there because I literally just moved in across the street from some pickleball courts. It's like tennis but smaller, or like ping pong but bigger. So it's like a cross between the two.
I gotta check it out.
It's like all the rage in the senior communities. And like it's so fun. Really good for brain health, by the way. And you can whack this ball because it's almost like a wiffle ball. Oh, it's such a good time. But the point is, right, I have a good time doing it. And it's the one that you love, right? Like, whether it's cycling or swimming, there's something for everybody. It can be hiking if you just like being out in nature. There's something for everyone. But I think it would be way more of an uphill battle if you're not getting any physical activity. I feel like it's really important to at least be doing something, getting your body moving, getting that lymph system moving. People don't realize your lymph, the whole lymphatic system, that doesn't travel through your veins. That's its own complete system. And the only way that moves around is by moving your body. So that's important, right? That's your immune system. And yeah.
Well, exercise is a key. And it's funny because the year and a half we had, I mean, with COVID and everybody being locked down, a lot of people were just gyms were closed and you can go out. So people have just literally lost a lot of that. And, and you can tell people are in different shape.
Yeah.
You know, in at least for a few months now, people are getting back into shape and things like that. A lot of people have gone into more like home type of workout styles, things like that. A lot of audio visual, you know, classes, things like that.
Yeah.
But that's been the way to diffuse that. And of course, some people that have better access to nature, you know, hiking, walking out, you know.
Yeah.
But you're right. So you move, you breathe better. Your oxygen levels are nicer. Your brain's function is much healthier. So all of the above.
And I love that you said that. I have a quick funny story. So like I prefer stuff outside. I really like doing a good mix of stuff that includes outdoors. But there was a guy, he's the husband of one of my clients, and she's always working out. And he is like, no, I don't do that stuff. I don't do that stuff. He's like, I don't like working out. I said, okay, you know, I'm not going to force you. Meanwhile, I go upstairs, the dude's soaking wet from sweating. I'm like, what the heck were you doing? He had, I don't know if you've heard of this, the Oculus, you know, those like video game things, like virtual reality.
Yeah.
He was playing boxing on this Oculus. And I'm like, dude, you just did like 45 minutes of cardio. You're telling me you don't like moving. He's like, no, that's just a game. I'm like, dude, you're sweating, man. You're breathing hard. I was like, there's your activity. Like, well, yeah, so everybody has something.
Well, you know, it's funny you said that. So I have a regular job, and in the job we work with the seniors in the senior market, and we have events that are dedicated to seniors. And you remember the Wii and also the Connect, the Xbox Connect, whatever they call those, you know. So we had those activities for seniors, which basically was a game, tennis, and this and that, boxing. But it does work. I mean, you got. It does. Well, I even used it, and it was fun, man. Yeah. So you're right. I mean, anything, whatever, you know, floats your boat, just do it. But the idea is, do not stagnate. Do not just sit idle, because that's the problem.
And try a bunch and see what has you having fun. That's the big thing. Yeah.
No, that's it. Well, again, I mean, exercise is big part of everything we do. I mean, walking, as simple as that. Any doctor will tell you, walk at least half hour a day, you know, few days a week, and just, you know, keep, you know, exercising. And again, weight. I mean, weight management, because at the end of the day, you start eating. And by the way, when you're home, you eat junk. And when you're healthier, or at least you're health conscious, and you're out there and you're getting into the fitness world, you tend to observe what you eat differently. You watch what you eat, you observe, you know, the content, you check on things, and you just don't throw in everything in your body. And so there's all that combination. And so that leads us to nutrition. Now we talk about supplements. Now there's a lot of stuff going on out there with nutrition. I mean, you know, diets, this, diet, that. Are there any things that you've addressed in the book that have specific, you know, content on nutrition?
Okay, so I am a certified nutrition specialist. I should put that out there, so I'm not just making things up. I do give a killer smoothie recipe. It's a chocolate, berry, peanut butter, banana, cinnamon smoothie. It's delicious. Highly recommend that, right?
In the book, right?
It's in the book. It's in the book. Yeah, totally get that. Okay. But as far as diets, you know, what I find that works best for most people, and again, I would really like for people to get that allergy test or the intolerance test. But I really like just of course, the Mediterranean diet, which is great, and you can make modifications for yourself. And I really like the anti-inflammatory diet, and I list that in the back of my book. I give my resources for the anti-inflammatory diet. Everyone I know who's done it, who's gone on that, and they don't go on a diet. Let's put it that way, right? It's not like something they do for a couple months. These are like lifestyle changes, right? They're cutting out the junk and gradually adding, you know, these better things. But getting that inflammation down, everybody feels better. Yeah, so I highly recommend those. Simple, right? It's nothing crazy. You hear about all these crazy things online, but it doesn't have to be complicated.
Well, the thing is, everybody can argue that all these diets work to a degree, and they probably do. And I think they do. The difference is, how long can you sustain all these diets?
Absolutely. And what is it that we're going for here? Are we just trying to lose weight, or are we going for overall health? I'm much more concerned with health, and the score will take care of itself. You know, the body will sort itself back out as long as we focus on that health.
Well, you said it yourself. I mean, you were losing weight thinking that was the right way.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the other thing. Losing weight is not necessarily a good thing, and gaining too much weight is not necessarily a good thing. It's really balancing it out, keeping a nice, healthy weight. Everybody's shape is different. Your height determines what weight you have to be, but also, do you have more muscle than so it's all those elements that apply that can make someone shift from one area to the other. But you're right, if you can get into a diet that is healthier and consistent, that you can continue it, and it's
Yes.
not eliminating all the stuff that because that's the thing, we eliminate a lot of stuff in some of these diets that people crave everything else, and when they do it, it's like almost an addiction. They go back so crazy on it, and they
Yes.
relapse right back into where they were, and that's not a cool thing. So
Absolutely. So let me tell you my theory on this, or what my plan, what I do. 85% of the time, I eat clean for my body. 15% of the time, I cheat like hell. And it's been working out for me for a good amount of time now.
well, listen, any good nutritionist or dietitian will tell you there's always cheat. You can cheat, every now and then. You just need to know how to cheat.
Yeah. And I cheat every day. I just don't do it for 3 meals a day, right? I give myself those little things because
Again, it's also, calorie deficit, calorie intake,
yeah,
balancing all that stuff. And, again, the right supplements.
Yeah.
It's all, I mean, that's the part. I mean, I've been just having discussions. We've talked about this, I talk about, nutritionists, dietitians, doctors. At the end of the day, it's all, everything goes tight together. There's
Yes.
no such thing. If you do one element, you're not balanced. You got to have the whole, balance in there to be able to stay healthy for long term and keep, everything, your mind, your body, everything is in place.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep. So breathing. I know you talk about like powerful breathing and things like that. And, what does that consist of? I mean, is that only through yoga, or these are just like breathing exercises?
So, yeah, yoga. So martial artists are big on breathing, and I don't need to tell you that. Yogis are very big on breathing. They call it the pranayama breath. I'm actually finishing up my yoga teacher training in a few weeks, so this is all fresh in my mind right now. But
give us the juice.
right, yeah. So, but my favorite, and this has been blowing up the past few years. My favorite is very simple, and it's called box breathing. I don't know if you've heard of this, so I'll explain it for your listeners. So box breathing, it's all through your nose, okay? And the idea is, as you breathe through your nose, as the air rushes over the back of your nasal cavity, there's this little cluster of nerves, okay? And as it does that, it activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest. Because back when we were cavemen, again, when we were panicking, it was all through our mouth, right? When we're breathing through our nose, it means we're relaxed. So it's that rest and digest. Now, the box part. We breathe in for a count of 4. We hold it for a count of 4. We breathe out for a count of 4. We hold it for a count of 4. And just repeat that. So you're not only getting that nice, deep diaphragmatic breathing, you're also getting a mental concentration practice here, right? You're controlling your lungs, air's flowing over the back of your nasal cavity. Kind of gross term, right? Nasal cavity. Anyway,
it's what it is. It is what it is.
What it is, yeah. It sounds weird, but anyway, it's kind of like this 1, 2, 3 punch. So box breathing, if you're just getting into these like really powerful breath practices, box breathing is a good place to start. I personally love doing it. I try to do it once a day when I'm relaxed, but I also do it before things that would stress me out. So let's say I have a presentation at work. I would chill out, do my box breathing for 5 minutes, and I would visualize myself giving this presentation perfectly. So then I go into it as if I had already done it, and I'm automatically calmed down because I've been doing my box breathing. So highly recommend it. Anybody wants to get into, breath sounds weird. It's like, well, I breathe, right? But it's not that simple, right? Get into this box breathing first, and you'll be like, oh wow. Next thing you know, you'll be Googling Wim Hof and seeing how you can really harness breath to really change your mood.
Is that something to do like on a certain frequency, or just as you feel necessary?
Well, so here's the thing. You don't want to do it only when you're stressed out, because what can happen is you'll associate it with stressful times. You want to do it when you're relaxed as well. So I try to do it at least, I try to do it every day. I don't have that many stressful things going on, luckily, but I try to do it every day. So that way, when the stressful things do come, I get right back to that box breathing. My body knows it's a calm place. Get into it, all that concentration, visualize the event going perfectly, smooth as silk.
Well, so Zack, you just stated earlier that you've finished a class of HIIT training. so
That's my hair, yeah.
Listen, HIIT training is intense, and so I just wanted to touch on that, because when you do that kind of training, I mean, everything is working.
Yeah.
And it, your body is really your brain, your oxygen. I mean, you're breathing. You have to breathe. I mean, to keep,
Oh yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
your cardio is level is like up and down. So it just keeps going, right? So is that something also to throw in the mix for people? Obviously, if they can, sustain. I mean, hit is a little bit, strong. You can't just get into it if you haven't worked out in ages. But
Mhm.
is that something you would recommend as well?
For starting out, if you are, since we're in this, uh, later stages of COVID as we record this, we're just getting back to in person. I would highly recommend if you're going to do it, you can do it as a beginner, but do it in person and go at your own pace. Because if they're saying move at an 8, that's okay. Go for your 8. It doesn't have to be the guy next to you, right? Move at your 8. I'm saying 8 out of 10 intensity, right? They call it RPE, rate of perceived exertion. So that's okay. And if you're moving at your 8, that's fine. Keep breathing, a nice deep belly breathing, right? The diaphragmatic breath. And absolutely, as long as you're cleared by a doctor, get into it. And the thing I love about HIIT is it's just always so fun. It's like you drop the rules and everyone's like everyone's there suffering together, but it's enjoyable because you're laughing. You're like, why are we doing this to ourselves? But it's fun. It's a very high energy thing, and you're so focused. It's very much a mental thing for me, where it's almost like a meditation because you're so wiped out and you're pushing so hard. That's all you can do is focus on this one thing we're doing. Yeah, so I would say as long as you're clear with your doctor, get into it. You'll love it.
Well, it does feel great after I finish a nice class.
Oh, of course. And I'm one of the weirdos who enjoys actually doing it. A lot of the people, they say, "Oh, I feel great afterwards." I feel great while I'm doing it. I just love doing it.
Well, I mean, yeah. Again, when you love something that you do, you always enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. See, I know. I'm talking to you, right? So this is a different. This is a
Well,
yeah.
but again, for the listeners too, I mean, like everything else, you got to get into it. You got to feel it, and you said it well best earlier. It has to be something you like, because
Yeah.
you can do something and then this is boring, and then you basically just not gonna be happy about it. Try different things, find the one that works for you, and then voila, that's it. You keep up
Yeah.
with it, enjoy. And sometimes you want to diversify because you don't want to also keep doing the same thing.
Absolutely. Great point. And I do talk about that in the book. I prefer people to have 3 things that they really love. At the very least, 2, because you don't want to physical things. I'm saying here. I know we've talked a lot about the physical aspects, which is fine. And I do love the physical aspects. There's way more in the book. Like I said, there's the mindset stuff, and you're welcome to email me for that. But the physical stuff is just so fun, and when you're tapped in, you become an evangelist about it, right? You really want people to share that joy with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Zach, one thing you mentioned earlier, but we didn't really go deep dive on. You said you are a certified brain trainer.
Yeah. Through the Functional Aging Institute. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that? Just as curiosity,
It's cutting. It's a pretty new field, and the Functional Aging Institute. This whole thing, this brain trainer certification was started by the people who trained under Daniel Amen, and you may not know who that is, but he wrote the book. Probably his most famous book is Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, and you would see him on like PBS, things like that. So they're his disciples, and the idea is it's not the idea, it's proven now. Your brain has plasticity, right? You're not stuck with it's not what we used to think, where you had a certain amount of brain cells when you're an adult and then it slowly shrinks. It's not that way. You can actually reverse that. So they call it angiogenesis, which is actually creating new
brain cell.
blood vessels in your brain. And then neurogenesis, which is the new neurons growing, right? So this can happen, right? That's proven. It's fascinating. I'm actually doing a presentation on it in a few weeks, and I love it. So my one big tip, maybe I'll give 2. If you really want to improve your brain health, get into that pickleball. And I'm not kidding about that. That's actually really, really great for your brain. Another one, and people struggle with this because it's like getting into meditation, which I talk about in the book as well. Because it takes the discipline and doing it every day. Start juggling. I'm not kidding you. Start juggling. Very, very good for your brain. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's hard to juggle stuff, so your brain has to work double time to figure it out.
It took me a long time, but it was a process, right? And if you set aside 5 minutes a day, even just like meditation, even just the learning to juggle, you don't have to be juggling, just the learning to juggle has great brain benefits.
I mean, it's just like some of these games that they have for the mind, mind exercise. So,
Yeah.
And I know I've seen those, especially in the senior world, they have those online and things like that. Even some places they do these, board games and even like things to stimulate the brain and get them fired and more exciting. So, hey, listen, everything works. I mean, you said it. I mean, brain, body, breathing, physical aspect, activities, all these things. But again, it has to be fun. It has to be something that people will, really feel good about, and certainly that's when you get the results you're looking for.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about the book all this time.
Yeah.
So what is the name of the book?
Oh, we didn't say that. Yeah. So it's called The Official Depression Relief Playbook. And I kind of a funny title, but I called it that on purpose. I want it to be almost like the plan you go to. So because it's actionable. It's not something you're just going to read. It's not just thoughts. It's actionable things that you can do. And I feel like it's really important for people in these dark stages of their lives to take action. It's empowering when you see results. It's empowering just getting up and doing the thing. So yeah, the Depression Relief Playbook, I kept it very short. It's because the last thing I wanted to do when I was 20 years old was to read through 350 pages to get to one or two good ideas. I didn't have the energy. So I made this very short. It's the kind of thing, really almost, I wrote it in two ways. I mean, partially I wrote it as to be a gift for people because I joke about it, but I wrote for the worst possible audience to get sales because depressed people typically don't reach out for help, right? So it was almost like as a gift that you can give to somebody. It's not overly preachy. And like I said, it's short. I want it next to people's bedstands. That's my dream. Is I want it people's next to people's bedstands, or on their bedstands, I should say, and they can pick it up and flip through it when they're at their deepest moments at 3 a.m. That's my dream about it. That's my dream for the future of this book. Yeah.
Well, I hope that people will take advantage and is available on Amazon, I believe, right?
Yeah, I went like the very simple route. To be honest with you, I put it on Amazon and that's it. So it's available through Amazon. Yeah.
Well, again, I want to put the link of the book or the site where they can actually click and just go to it and check it out. And frankly, I think to your point, it's a guide how to do with all this, and all the stuff we discussed today is already in there. Plus you have the formulas and you have the different values that you can use, the supplements, the tab supplements, maybe the shake that we talked about.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and then there's plenty of other stuff in there too, like the second half of the book we didn't discuss at all, which is fine. But yeah, there's plenty of other stuff in there too, and you can start at any point of it. You don't have to start with just the fitness stuff. That's what that's what worked for me, I should say. But you can start at any of these stages. Yeah, and I talk about my experiences with therapy, and I talk about my experiences with medication, and it's I feel like it can be it can be really valuable to certain people who are in that mindset I was in. Yeah.
So quick question. I know we didn't talk about medications, and I know you just hit on that.
Yeah.
Is that also obviously it's on the book, but
yeah.
What is that experience and what is the interaction of medication, good, bad, or otherwise, in terms of people's depression or just healthy living?
So obviously talk to your doctor, of course, and I was hesitant. That was actually the last thing I did, was go on medication. That was the very last thing I did, and that wasn't until a few years ago. And I could have been okay without doing it, to be honest. I could have been okay, but I'm much better now while on it, because around 8 o'clock at night, when I guess if my testosterone dropped or whatever happened, 8 o'clock at night, that's when the brain started running the mind. So it was the last step I took. Now, I have a friend who started doing the medication, and he was expecting that to be a cure-all, and he didn't. He still calls me with these panic attacks, and I'm like, dude, you have to still put in the work, man. You have to put in the work. Like, this isn't going to do the work for you. This is just one step, right? So I talk about, not only the stigma, but like the misinformation. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I thought once you're on medication, you had to be medicated for the rest of your life. Not true. My primary care doctor, she was like, look, she's like, if you don't like it, come off of it. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was an option.
Well, you're right. The popular I guess perception is that you get onto those meds and you're in for life. It's addictive and you can't
Mm-mm.
get off them.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the perception. Absolutely. And no, it's not that way. And another one is, that you're gonna like collect all these side effects, right? And yes, I had side effects, and they were significant the first week. I definitely noticed them. The next week, there were a little less. The next week, they were a little less. And I honestly, probably 6 months in, I still felt some side effects, but eventually they all went away. So that's another thing is I really urge people, if they are going to go that route, they need to do the work as well. But if they're going to do the medications, don't do it for 3 days. I know too many people, that seems to be like the magic number. They do it for 3 days. They say, oh, I don't like the way it made me feel. And then they come off of it. No, let your body do its thing. Your body needs to adjust. It's smart. It will adjust, but you have to give it the time.
Well, that's for everything, including like even workout. Like just
Oh
go.
yeah,
You can start the first 2 sessions are going to be the hardest. The third one is going to be even.
you're absolutely right. You're
And then
absolutely right.
you
Yeah,
do it a week, 2 weeks, and then it's like routine. Like, oh, I want more.
absolutely right. And you can't expect to have massive pecs after 2 times lifting a dumbbell or lifting a barbell. Yeah, yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that. Yes, I'm going to use that from now on. That analogy.
Well, but it's true. I mean, like even like everything else, everything that is good and worth anything in life takes time.
Takes time.
And
Takes time.
I mean,
And that's okay.
it is.
Yeah, because there's way too much. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This instant fix people want. It, you know, I wouldn't say nothing is valuable that comes instantly, because maybe there are a few things that come instantly that are valuable, but I would say that there is a lot of stuff that just takes time, and that's okay. That's part of the process, man.
Well, what I said, anything that is worth,
Yeah.
and because yeah, you can have things that are instant, but they might not be worth, what you're really looking for, and that they may not be for a long time. So everything, I mean, whether you want good food, it takes good time to prepare. You want a good relationship, you have to build it. You want,
Yes.
a house, you got to work hard for it. You want a business, it takes time to build. I mean,
Yeah.
that's life. I mean, yeah, but you
Yes.
can get something, you can get elements that you can buy instantly, and like, okay, but then, and if you didn't work for things long enough, or if you didn't appreciate them, you might not actually continuously use them over time, because you're just like, okay, whatever. So again, but you're right. Like everybody needs to realize that you want results, you need to put the time, you need to invest.
Yes.
And
Yes. Thank you.
that's it. You just have to invest. That's it.
We're
Well,
speaking the same language, brother.
hey, I love it. And it's great because for our listeners, I mean, I'm sure some people will relate to this. A lot of people will relate to this, and they're like, yeah. And even for the people that are like in the same mindset, this is always a refresher. We all need a refresher and a reminder and a constant reminder that like, that's how you have to think. That's how you have to do things. And we give them different ways of seeing different angles, different opinions, different resources. But at the end of the day, whether you're right now going through a bad time, through depression, anxiety, panic, whatever, whether you're good and everything is working, you can still get elements from any discussion we have and any advice that we get from our, guests over here. So
That was one of the nicest things that actually was said to me. This happened a few times. I've been going on podcasts with therapists, and they say, this is actually just a really nice book for anybody, not just depressed people. And I'm like, oh man, thanks so much.
well, it is, because I mean, you're addressing the general public. Again, whether you're depressed or not, we still need to be reminded of like what are effective measures that we have to take to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And you hit on everyone. I mean, that's why I was going through the list here. One, I mean, physical, breathing, supplements, nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, all this stuff goes in hand. And so, and you're right, it's not just for someone that's going through a tough time. I mean, obviously it will help someone that is going through it, certainly as a resource and maybe a guide to get out of it, but also for those to even prevent it.
Yes.
You can just, prevention is better. I mean, preventative care is better than emergency care.
Thank you. So love that. Yes.
All right. Well, listen, I mean, we're coming on to the end of the show.
Wow.
I mean, went by quick. But I mean, I did want to highlight, I mean, we didn't talk about your background, but you do have a couple of masters, and a lot of certifications and different, in fitness and the brain, training that you said. So there's and nutrition, I believe, too.
Yeah.
Right. So you bring a whole wealth of knowledge to the table. And for anyone listening and watching on the iHealth channel, please feel free to check out the book. The link will be on the description of the show. The mindset, we had him, Zach volunteered for the mindset, chapter. So
yep, shoot me an email, guys.
Yeah. I'll have that information as well. And just follow these elements. I mean, these are just great advice that any one of us can use. And even if we don't feel that we need it because we are good, and sometimes that's how we all think that we got this, someone we know may not have it, and maybe we can share that with other folks. And that's how it is. It's knowledge that we can share that can help. And if we can help one life and save one life, you never know what that impact is. And that's really the mission. And I think everyone will be a winner here. So that's keeping positive.
Love it, man.
So Zach, just any last words for our audience before we end the show?
Yeah. So if you are depressed, okay, what I would really urge you to do is, of course, we want to practice forgiveness with ourselves, right? Because sometimes people will say, oh, why don't you just snap out of it? And they say, some of the wrong things. And to a large extent, your situation isn't your fault, right? This happens to a lot of people. So forgive yourself, but you also, please, to make it easier on yourself, forgive these other people, because people will give you the wrong advice. They will say stupid things because they don't understand, because they can't. They just don't get it. I've had people say some really horrible things to me, but if you forgive them, that's a little bit of weight off of your shoulders. They just don't get it, and that's okay too.
Powerful advice. I mean, forgiveness is a key, is a big deal, and it's not for everyone. It's hard. So
yeah, you got to work at it. You're right.
But again, thank you. I mean, that is very powerful, and I think that is the best gift we can give as a closure to the discussion today. So thank you, Zach. It's been a pleasure. A lot of good info and insights and advice and guidance here, folks. Thank you for watching the iHealth channel, listening on iHealth Radio. Hurricane H here with our guest Zack Rutledge. Thank you very much for everything, and we'll talk soon at the next show. Bye bye.